Welcome to Mornings with Mayesh, everyone. Alyssa Lytle of Flowering Minds, and our guest today, um, she is our Mayesh Design Star, and I'm so excited for you guys to join the conversation with us. We're going to be talking more about sustainability, and we're going to be diving into her mechanics that have been showcased over the last 2 months with her two stunning designs, a table runner and tapestry, and answer your flower questions. So before we get started, I want everyone to say hello and let us know where you're from. Also, a reminder, if you have any questions for Alyssa, go ahead and pop those in the comments and we will get to those as time permits. And then also, before we get started, I wanted to make sure that you are aware that we are going to be wrapping up our excellence contest entry period. It ends at the end of the month. So make sure you head over to mayesh.com and get those details, get those posts up so that way you can win a trip to Ecuador, guys. It's pretty amazing. Super excited about that. Also, wanted to make sure that you are aware that we're also going to be wrapping up our search for our 2024 Mayesh Design Star lineup. And as you are aware, sustainable floristry has taken center stage for this year's series. And although it's not going to be the main theme, we are committed to maintaining the momentum and highlighting sustainable mechanics and designs going forward. So if you decide to apply, keep that in mind, and get more details in the link that I'm going to share in the comments, guys, because we are excited to see your entries. Captions. Here we are. Where's the chat? There it is. There we go. Hi, Maritza. How are you? Also, wanted to make sure that you guys are aware that we actually changed the date for our upcoming Detroit workshop with Amy Balsters. And I hope you guys can meet us there. It's going to be Wednesday, October 25th, and it's going to be an amazing event to elevate your design game. So definitely want to check that out. We've gotten so much great feedback on that, and I hope you can join us and see us in Detroit. And all right, with that, everything looks good on my end, and I am going to bring on Alyssa, and we're going to get started. Hey, Alyssa.
Hi, how are you? Hello, everyone.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Just
Awesome.
just hanging out in this Texas heat.
I feel you hanging out in the Florida heat, and I don't know about you, but it's been like super rainy, like for months and months and months. I feel like
We're
we're
in
a little
major
bit on like,
drought. We're in a
oh,
serious drought, so I wish.
well, I'm sorry for that. We need to like have just a little happy medium between
I know,
between
exactly.
between the two. So happy to have you on here. Guys, if you haven't watched Alyssa's videos, I hope you check them out. They're everywhere. They're on YouTube, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, they're up on our blog. So there's no excuse to miss them, and they are literally amazing. And for people who may not have seen the videos or don't know who you are, Alyssa, can you just get us started by introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your flower story?
Yeah, for sure. I started out in flowers out of just sheer accident slash desperation for a job. I went to college for graphic design and painting. I was an oil painter. I realized there wasn't many job opportunities for me with a bachelor's in painting. And I decided I wanted to get my master's, and I decided I needed a part-time job while I was applying. And I lived in Chicago at the time. I did not have a car. And so I literally was just applying to jobs within walking distance. And the first place I walked into was a flower shop. I didn't care. I had no like excitement about it. I literally was just like, I had never even gone into a flower shop. I wasn't a flower person. And they hired me pretty much on the spot. This was in like 2008. So it was before Instagram, and it was before it was trendier. And I just started washing buckets. And from there, I kind of hopped from flower shop to flower shop. Again, only learning whatever was in front of me, because the internet wasn't as valuable as it is now. And so I didn't realize how much potential there was in floristry. I was just washing buckets, doing deliveries, making little arrangements, and it just was a very slow progression. So I was doing that for almost 10 years. And I moved to Austin, Texas, and just happened to get a job at kind of a corporate hospitality situation as a florist, and then I learned more about the event world. And then from there, it was kind of took off.
That's amazing. And when did you decide to start Flowering Minds?
So, when I was working for this hospitality company, I was there for a couple of years, and then I started Color Theory Design Co., which was my event floral design business. My first venture into business. I had so much experience under my belt. It felt pretty natural. I was really scared, but it felt pretty natural. And as I realized the potential there was for me, even as someone who didn't know anything about business, I realized how unaware I was of how possible it was to build a business without from nothing. And I kind of realized the truths I believed around what you had to know to start a business or what kind of capital you had to have that were all false. And I got really excited. And business became my passion almost more than flowers, I would say. I just was so excited about the freedom I was finally experiencing after working, at an very low hourly rates, just kind of giving my whole life for what felt like a very, very small paycheck. And so I was just so excited. I was so pumped. I met my husband during this period. We moved to Portland, Oregon, just for the beauty, the mountains, the ocean, all of that. And then we decided to start a flower shop. We had just had a baby. My husband decided to join Color Theory. So we were like, oh, let's try to scale our business and start a retail flower shop. We built out our flower shop in Portland and opened February 28th of 2020. So if you can put that math together, we were for like 12 days and then we're shut down. So
Oh my
that is
goodness.
where Flowering Minds came from, because everyone who had a flower shop or any kind of brick and mortar business during that time understood it got complicated. You had rent to pay. You had to figure out how to bring in income. And so we started flower class subscription. It wasn't called Flowering Minds at the time.
That's so interesting. I love that story. So just love just doing the grind and evolving and changing and pivoting and figuring out and doing something that feels like, good in your heart. In Flowering Minds, I know you talked about how it's starting, but can you just again describe what Flowering Minds is for people who may not know?
Yeah, for sure. It's an annual membership. So you can join Flowering Minds and you get access to over 150 design and business focused around sustainability and profitability. And you get access to mood board templates, our process for booking events, our process for planning out events, designing, working with planners, just everything I've ever learned in the past 17 years in business. We put on this platform, try to make it as affordable as possible for people to have access to as much information as they can to grow their business. For me, it's like such a passion of mine I want other people to feel that feeling I felt when I felt finally free. I'm slightly free of the grind. Everyone knows event design is not easy, but it still felt like a more fair payoff than what I had experienced working hourly rates. So I'm to this day just so excited to share the information and help people get their businesses off the ground.
I love it. I love it. And you mentioned sustainability, so let's dive into that a little bit. Obviously, in recent years, there has been a growing emphasis on sustainability in various industries. And how do you see sustainability trends influencing the field of floral design? And what motivated you to incorporate sustainability practices into your work?
I'll start with what motivated me to start. I was definitely a floral foam user. That's what I was taught in the old school Chicago flower shops. I had no idea there was that much of an issue. I did know that it wasn't a great um, product, like chemical wise, but I didn't know much about what it was made out of. And it wasn't until I got pregnant with my son, who his name's Django, that I started thinking more about what I was coming in contact with, and just on an everyday level, what I was putting in my body, what I'd be putting his body, what he would be coming in contact with. And I was working out of a garage studio when I was pregnant. And my husband is kind of like-minded, was also kind of looking into things. And he came across some articles about floral foam that just put us down a rabbit hole. And I realized how toxic it is. And then in addition, something I didn't know was that it's a plastic and it doesn't ever go away after it gets thrown away. So that really is what motivated me, as much as I really look up to people who can do that for themselves. It was easy to do it or get started in doing it for my son. And then that rabbit hole continued, and I started learning more about the pesticide and the way labor is treated at different farms around the world, and just the carbon footprint of shipping them, just so much. So it just kind of, it continues to expand. I'm by no means an expert. There's so much to learn.
Yeah, tons and tons to learn, and it is. I feel like there is obviously a lot of people that kind of pay attention to those things, and it's like one of their passions. But for a lot of people, like what you said, when you get pregnant and you're thinking about the lotions you wear and the deodorants and the food you're eating, and so obviously it kind of goes beyond that too. Like what you were saying, like what are you touching and what is just in your environment.
Mhm.
So um, definitely can totally relate to that.
Yeah, and then back to how I see it kind of impacting the future or design trends of the floral industry. I would say there's definitely pockets, like a lot of sustainable florists are kind of in a bubble, and you think everyone is kind of on the same page until you realize they're not. And it is definitely a bubble that's growing. And so I think within that bubble of florists who are very aware of sustainable practices, their designs are changing. They're basically, I think, getting a lot more creative with what they're doing, and thinking outside of the box instead of thinking, how can I make this foam arrangement with no foam? They're thinking, what designs can I make with the mechanics I have available? And they're creating designs that they never would have created without that constraint. And so I think it's exciting to see people getting creative and being forced to think outside of the box and not use that something like foam as a crutch.
Right, right. And speaking of thinking outside of the box, your 2 videos definitely are outside of the box. So let's start with your first video that you created, this stunning floral table runner. Guys, you seriously, I wish I had a picture to show you guys. I should have had that because the color in it, I can see how that ties back to kind of your artistry,
Yeah.
like as your background and your education, because it's just really gorgeous. But beyond that, obviously there's the mechanics and the sustainability piece of it. So can you first walk us through kind of that creative process behind designing this runner, and kind of also talk a little bit about what inspired this particular arrangement?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, color is definitely a huge part of where I start. To be inspired by at least one flower and then build the palette out from there. So for this, where I really started was that bright blue cornflower, and I just wanted to make it feel as blue as possible. So I started thinking, like, what can I pair with this to make it feel even more electric? And with that, I was thinking of its complement, which is orange, but then you can make it even more striking by doing kind of more of a muted orange, which is basically like a taupe or a beige. So using the cottage yarrow and I don't remember what else, Lysianthus, the brown Lysianthus, um, are, really help that bright blue pop. And so for me, that's where my brain went first. I also wanted to share a mechanic that enables event florists to design an installation ahead of time, because as an event florist, a long-time event florist, I know one of the stresses of setting up an event is not being anything you can't design ahead of time becomes a stressor in your mind, and you have a limited amount of time, you're working under pressure, you're working as guests are filing in. And so I really wanted to share the method of using the 2x4s as a base for the floral runner, because it makes it so easy to design it in your studio, export it to the event. So I had my color palette, and then I thought, okay, what mechanic can I share where that will help people be able to design their installations ahead of time. So I decided to share this one technique. And here you can
I love
see,
it.
yeah, the 2x4s have holes drilled into the ends. They're cut at about, I believe, 2 feet each, roughly. Some of them are a little different. 2 holes drilled. You can use wire or zip ties to connect them where that table bends. And you can do as many as you want. You can transport them without connecting them. So they're super easy for one person to carry. Super easy to get in there. They don't roll around in the van. Very, very stable. And on the base of the 2x4s, I strapped ocean pouches, which are completely compostable and regenerative. So I would actually recommend designing these before you get to the event, because they do drain a little bit, but they are contained. So the draining stops, and it's really easy to place it on a velvet. I used a velvet linen, but it's really easy to place it on the linen without any water leaking on the table.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I wanted to share the screen so that way people could see the color palette and the wood pieces and the ocean pouches and all of that. Um, love, love, love this design.
Thank you.
And um, so using wood is definitely very interesting. I think I might have had one other video that where one of our designers, our Mayesh Design Stars, used wood. And so kind of, can you explain the reasoning behind choosing the wooden base for the design and kind of what those advantages are for this choice?
Yeah, I mean, I like to use things that aren't plastic. And so anytime I can use something wood, it's really sturdy. It's really easy to get your hands on. Almost anyone has a hardware store nearby. They can get this for a few dollars. So it's really affordable. It's really easy to access. You can use it over and over again. And I use these 2x4s for a variety of designs, not just this. I have metal bases. I did not use in either of these designs. I have metal bases that fit 2x4s, so you can stick a 2x4 in there and design like an upright arrangement, kind of like a faux arch.
Right.
So I love my 2x4s. Actually, this was a 1x4, I think, but either way, I have a collection of both, and I really like to use them as a base because they're just so sturdy. And when you're designing flowers, and especially with a water source, things get really, really heavy. And I see people trying to use like chicken wire with a water source, adding flowers, and it just gets crumpled and bends under the weight. So I love having that structure underneath that just keeps it solid.
I love it. Love it. Anyone else use wooden bases? Kind of like how Alyssa showed. I would love to hear from you guys. Let us know. Also, just a reminder, if you have any questions, go ahead and pop those in the comments. And with that, I'm going to ask my next question. So, can you tell us more about these ocean pouches? And, you talked about the role in the design, but like more about like what are they? And what makes them kind of a suitable foundation that's sustainable for floral arrangements?
Well, what they are, I copy and paste this every time someone asks me. So let me look this up. And I will tell you, it's not my product, but you can get it if you're in the United States. You can get it from New Age Floral. I believe they are or will be soon available in Australia and UK. So let me just tell you, what is it made of? Okay, here we go. It is a blend of 100% natural and organic coir, COIR. I don't know how to pronounce this. This is why I have to read it every time. Based formula. The membrane is plant-based, typically made from starches derived from corn or sugar beet, and has passed the home compostable tests by the TUV Austria. So it's fully compostable. It's basically, I'll tell you how it feels. It kind of feels like a mixture between clay and dirt on the inside. It looks like dirt if you're to rip it open. And the outside feels like a plastic, but it's not. It's plant-based. Therefore, it can break down. So it arrives to you really, really lightweight. It's almost feels like a hacky sack. Hacky sack?
Yeah,
The
hacky
thing you
sack.
push around? Okay. It almost feels like that, like it's dry, you can kind of shake it, and it's like a limp bag, and then you poke about 10 holes on each side, soak it for 4 minutes, and it expands into like a squishy little pillow that you just stab your flowers into. So it's great for day of designs. I would even maybe do the day before, as long as it's being kept in a cooler and the flowers are hardy, but not so much for floral deliveries, like for retail. It's not going to hold up that long. So would recommend just water for something like that. But for events, it's great.
Got it. Great. Thank you for walking me through that because no one's really kind of described it, and and
Yeah.
I was curious, and yeah, it looks like a squishy pouch on the
Yeah.
wood piece in the video. So, and I put the link in for the video, and we actually have a link to ocean pouches. So if you guys want to check that out, it's in our blog for your reference. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next video, which is also equally stunning, and I'll pop in a link for that in a second here for you guys. But when creating the floral tapestry showcased in this video, you mentioned using suet cages, I think I'm
Mhm.
pronouncing that right,
Do it.
as a
Yeah.
replacement for chicken wire in your floral designs. You also use kind of like this wire shelving too. That's really cool. But can you share some specific advantages of the suet cages over traditional chicken wire when it comes to sustainability and durability?
Yeah.
And this is just interesting because again, it's like something totally different, you know, for used for something not floral
Very
design related.
random.
So I
Yeah.
always love when people find these things and they start using it in design.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I I had this idea concept for a product, which actually has recently been created by a florist. I believe Ava Floral now has this product. It's a lot like a suet cage, but it's meant for florists. But I had this idea of a product years ago that was like the plastic Oasis cages that people generally put foam in.
Yeah.
I like I learned from I learned on those in different various event jobs for other companies, and you couldn't reuse them you would strap them to a arch, and if you strapped it on there hard enough, it would just break. Like they just break down over time. And I thought, how amazing would it be if I had this shape that was made out of metals and some kind of material that wouldn't break down, time after time of being strapped to different structures. And I looked into having it manufactured. It was way overwhelming. I was like, no, I guess I just will go without it. And then one day during the same period, I walked into an Ace Hardware and there were these bird suet cages, which are those very sturdy metal cages that are like, they're basically like the size of a brick of foam.
Right.
And so I bought literally all of everything they had there that day, and they were like $6 each. Felt very affordable, and I've been using those ever since. That was probably like 7 years ago. I've been using the same ones. They hold up really, really well. And these, if you don't know what a suet cage, if you've seen those bird seed patties, they're like bricks of bird seed. So instead of you putting loose bird seed into a bird feeder, you're putting like a big brick of bird seed that they peck at and put it in a big cage. That's what a suet cage is. But instead, you can expand ocean pouches into the suet cages. You can use agri-wool. You can stuff it with wet moss. Or you can just stuff it with more chicken wire if you don't really need a water source. But you can strap it with wire or zip ties, and it just holds really, really well under a lot of weight.
I love it. I love it. So, I'm gonna ask this next question, and then I'll share my screen again so everyone can see the tapestry. That's just gorgeous. And when you were creating this, you mentioned using a spider, Gerber daisies, allium, and anthurium in your floral tapestry design. How did you decide on the selection of flowers for this design, and what role does texture, color, and shape play in the decision?
Well, when I was choosing the flowers for this, I definitely did not feel as in control as I did with the previous one. My vision wasn't as clear. Like I knew it's something I hadn't seen before, so it was hard for me to like wrap my head around it. But I felt like I wanted it to feel like a neutral tapestry. Originally, I wanted it to all just be whites, like you would see a white tapestry with a bunch of textures hanging on a wall.
Right.
But then I also wanted a pop of something. So that's where the anthurium came in. So the Gerber daisies, the spider Gerber daisies, which you see strung on the lower left and upper right. Yeah. I chose those based on texture. They're very frilly around the edges, and I knew if they were facing sideways, it would just look more like a textile than it would a flower. So that was my goal with that. And same with the allium, the not the purple, the one below that, the white, it's kind of like a whitish gray. Yeah, all of that's allium. I wanted something, again, textural that felt more like a textile than a flower. And so that's what I had in mind for most of these things. But the allium I liked as a juxtaposition because it's you have all these tiny textures and then you have something flat and smooth, and it's just very satisfying to the eye when you find a smooth accent against a very textured accent. So I just wanted the patches in the textile to feel very, very drastically different from each other. So that's kind of what I had in mind when I was choosing these textures.
I love it. And, of course, you see your wood there too.
Mhm. I know I was considering cutting it up, but all the textile inspiration I was finding had a wood bar across the top, so I thought I would just go with that.
Yeah, no, it's so gorgeous. Honestly, one of my
Thank you.
favorites in a while, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Love it. All right, so for florists who are new to sustainability, Alyssa, what are some practical steps they can take to make their floral design projects more eco-friendly beyond, using reusable mechanics?
So, well, the first step I would say it's going to go back to mechanics, then I'll go beyond that. But the first thing I would say is just get rid of things like floral foam. The minute you don't have it available as an option is when you'll really start innovating. You don't necessarily have to have a perfect plan in place for how you're going to do it, but don't have it as an option and you will be forced to figure it out. So that's my number one tip for florists who are having a hard time getting rid of it or stopping using it. Beyond mechanics, I would say ordering domestically. So whatever country you're in, sometimes it's hard to get local flowers. So ordering flowers that are grown domestically is a great step. Being aware of pesticides that are being used in different farms. Um, for me, the chemical usage is huge because it causes so many health problems. For you and the people around the products. So we don't use things like um, bleach, DCD. I don't know. We try not to use Dawn soap. We have Dawn soap for very special occasions. Just things that are more toxic tend to come in, containers that are plastic. You're constantly throwing them away. The chemicals themselves are not great, that you're inviting them into the atmosphere and then throwing them away in the trash can. So we really try to use reusable rags. We get refills on our vinegar and our bronzers. And our hydrogen peroxide is great for cleaning too, if you're for cleaning buckets. Um, we really try to keep our trash cans as empty as possible and keeping our green waste like where most of the stuff goes. So
So
it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved, and it all depends on where you're located and what
right,
resources you have.
right. And so the green waste, for example, do you compost that? Do you do that on your own, or do you work with a company? Like how do you handle that?
We've composted it in the past. We've lived in Portland. There was a whole composting program, so we composted with the city. I know a lot of people will compost with local farmers who will gladly take that. You also have to keep in mind, where your flowers are coming from, what pesticides they have in them, and whether or not you want to compost them for food use. So that obviously matters. So yeah, again, it depends on where you're located, but you can connect with local farms, see if they'll take your green waste. If you live in a more progressive city, there's often a composting program. You can get a green waste trash can sent to your house or your studio. So yeah, we always try to. The last thing I want to do is fill our like garbage bags with compost, tie it, and then send it to a landfill, where
Right.
it could just be being going back to the earth instead of sitting in a trash bag. We also actually don't use trash bags. We just use like empty garbage containers. I found that they
Okay.
aren't really that necessary. Or we use flower boxes.
Flower
Those
boxes.
are great for green waste.
Yeah, that's great. All good stuff. Um, let's see. All right. Good, good, good. I wanted to ask, do you have any kind of upcoming projects or anything new that you want to share with our audience? What
I
do you
do
have
have some
going on?
things. I do have some things in the works, some great resources, but they aren't quite ready to be announced. So, what I do have is a free floral pricing guide. It's a florist guide to pricing flowers. So, pretty self explanatory there. So, this is a free resource people can sign up for. They'll get a PDF on how to price their flowers, how to be profitable. There's a sample estimate in there from my real business. It's a real event estimate, being an example of how you can price and something to your client. And once you sign up for that, you will be getting some emails, a lot of free resources, some classes, some gifts, and then you get the announcement for some of our new exciting happenings in the future, near future.
Awesome. Good. So I dropped that link in the comments, guys. You see it on the screen as well. All my Instagram viewers, everything's caught up for you. So I'll have that link up on our blog with our show notes as well for future reference. So you
And you
guys
can
can.
also find it in my bio on Instagram as the pricing guide. So in Flowering Minds or under list.lytle, either of those profiles, you can find that link.
Yes. And how do they connect with you on Instagram?
You can follow our floweringminds.education account for tips, for funny floristry thoughts, just joking about florist life, and any upcoming news for Flowering Minds. And then you can also follow my personal account, which is lys.lytle, lys.lytle, just for my own artistry stuff. It's just kind of more personal
I need to find
creations.
that. Hold on. Give me a second. I have that right here. I got you. List.lytle. So here is that for you guys as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was really great. You're doing amazing things. So happy to have you as one of our design stars this year. And I just appreciate everything that you've put out there and everything that you've worked on with us. So thank you so much, Alyssa.
Of course, and thank you so much for having me on as a design star. I am humbled and honored, and thanks for chatting with me today.
Yeah, this has been great. And guys, that's a wrap on today's Mornings with Mayish. Make sure you check back because I have a very special guest for Breast Cancer Awareness Month is starting up here in October. Can you believe it's going to be October already? I can't.
Mm.
So I'm getting the final details together on that, and I'll be announcing the new show soon. And so stay tuned. And again, thank you guys so much for spending some time with us today. I will see you all soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.